Hello and welcome to Piano Shack with me, Woody. Thank you for tuning in. Yes, we are back in the hot seat to discuss the pricing of Arranger keyboards. As you know then, high-end Arranger keyboards like this one cost an awful lot of money and may be out of the budget of many musicians. In this video, I'll give you some suggestions for cheaper alternatives to the GENOS2, and we'll also touch upon perhaps why this costs a lot of money compared to some of the alternatives. And this is something I'm pondering and considering myself for my own buying decisions. Yes, I'd love to have the GENOS2, but this is on loan to me and eventually will go back to Yamaha.
Well, I feel so broken, I wanna go home. So hoist up the giant B sail, see how the mainsail sets. Call for the captain ashore, let me go home.
Okay, let's talk numbers. If you want to buy one of these, and I'm going to use US dollars here and the US market since that's where most of my viewers come from, it's a similar situation in Europe as well. If you want to get one of these, I checked on Sweetwater. Actually, I didn't check today, but I have checked before. You're looking at a price somewhere about $5,500, I think. And it's going to vary, of course, depending which retailer you go to and if you can negotiate a better price, perhaps. But think 5,000 or 6,000 US dollars for one of these. Yeah, a lot of money. To me, that is surprisingly expensive. And I know many of the viewers of this channel have also reacted and perhaps are a little bit upset about the high price of one of these. To put it into perspective, I said $5,500 for one of these. The new Montage M61 is $3,500, so a lot less. You could in fact get one of these, or for the same price as one of these, you could get the new Montage with the 61 keys and a flagship Korg Nautilus, and you'd be looking at roughly the same kind of money as this. Yeah, two flagship synths is about the same price as the GENOS2. Remember, of course, this is a brand new instrument, and over time the prices tend to go down. I think at the end of the GENOS1's lifetime, you could get one for about $4,000. And hopefully we'll see the same pattern on the prices of GENOS2s as well after a year or two. But yeah, there's no doubt about it, that's a lot of dough, which might put this out of reach of many musicians. Let's talk about some alternatives.
It's no better to be safe than sorry. Take on me, take me on.
Well, funnily enough, there's never been a better time to buy a used GENOS1. That's right, a lot of GENOS1 owners have been trading in their GENOSes in order to buy the new model. And I know they've been part exchanging them from reading forums, and the dealers have been offering like $2,500 for their used GENOS1s. So the owner of the two would then have to put down $2,500 of their own money to get the new model. Gosh, that's a lot of money. But people are doing it. And that means that the dealers now have a lot of used GENOS1s, lightly used, perhaps in very good condition, often with the accessories like the speaker and the matching stand. And they'll be selling those for a little bit more than they paid for them, but from a retailer, you could probably get a GENOS1 with a little bit of haggling for about $3,000, $3,000, which is about half the price of the GENOS2. And yeah, the one is still a fantastic instrument. Yes, it doesn't have all of the shiny new features that we get here. It doesn't have the same number of styles and the new styles, of course, but it's basically the same DNA. It's a very similar instrument, and I'm sure you and I could still make some really good music on the G1. So that's my top recommendation, actually. And if you're prepared to buy used locally direct from the seller, the previous owner, I reckon you could, with a bit of luck, get a used G1 for $2,000. I'm sorry, perhaps you're not from an English-speaking country. When I say grand, that is English slang for 1,000. So $4,000 is 4,000. And I'm using dollars throughout the video, and like USA prices.
I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try. Every whisper of every waking hour,
If you really want to understand the differences between the G2 and the G1, just check my video. I have a presentation where we demonstrate all of the new features so you can see if that's something that for you is worth paying the extra $3,000 to get the G2. Yeah, and I'm sorry, it does feel vulgar to talk about money, but it's one of the most important considerations for many of us when we're buying a new musical instrument, of course, especially in this day and age when money is a bit tight and everything is so expensive. Okay, one thing that I've been really tempted to do for the last few years is to pick up a used Tyros. As many of you will know, the predecessor to the GENOS was the Tyros. The last model was the Tyros 5 that was released about 10 years ago, I suppose, going all the way back to the Tyros 1, which was maybe 20, 25 years ago or something, I'm guessing. And I've been sorely tempted to pick up a used Tyros because they are so cheap, and it's the same DNA as the GENOS. You get similar capabilities, the architecture is the same. Of course, the sounds won't be so cutting edge, the quality may be somewhat inferior, but remember the Tyros was still a very expensive flagship instrument at the time of its release, and still just as good now. I see used Tyros 5s available for about $1,500, $1,500 to $2,000. A lot of owners are asking silly money for them, but I reckon you could get one for $1,500, again with a lot of the included accessories, the speakers and stands. And yeah, that's a really interesting option. If you want to go back in time, the Tyros 4, 3, 2, 1, you could get a early Tyros for as little as $500, and that's a great way to get started on these. You get similar features, of course, similar styles. You don't get the touch screen, but you do get a nice big tilty screen that GENOS owners still love and wish they had on their G2s. And in fact, for many people, the lack of a touch screen is seen as an advantage, and it is nice to get physical buttons instead. So that's a top tip. I've been tempted myself to get a Tyros. The thing that turns me off about some of the later models is they had built-in spinning hard disks, you know, the magnetic hard disks for storing your audio recordings and expansions and samples and so on. And I don't really want to be reminded of how old and ancient the technology is by hearing a whirring hard disk vibrating under my fingers as I play. But perhaps I could get a Tyros one day and swap out the hard disk for an SSD. That would be an interesting project, I think. But still a great keyboard, and if you don't believe me, go and check on YouTube. There are really popular videos with millions of views of people doing some incredible performances on Tyros keyboards. Still sounds good today. In the right hands, it's going to be fantastic. More on that topic later, by the way, a bit of a spoiler. If you want a more modern keyboard, but still at a lower price, check out a used PSR. Now, on this channel, I've demonstrated the PSR SX900, which is the current flagship of the PSR line. It inherits a lot of features from the GENOS 1. That keyboard, I think, is about 3 years old. You could probably find a used one of those for about $1,500, and that's an incredible instrument, giving you a lot of the power and the sounds and the features of one of these, in fact, with a few advantages, in fact. We'll touch on that later. You could also get an older PSR, what are they called? S910, really tricky names for the Yamaha naming conventions. S900 is another old flagship model of the PSRs. I've demonstrated all of these on the channel. I might even put a few clips into the video. You'll get an older flagship PSR, something that's maybe 5 to 10 years old, for about $500 to $1,000. And it's a great instrument. I had so much fun with my old PSRs. At the time, they were fantastic instruments, and nothing has changed since then. They are still as fantastic now as they were when they were released. You just have to ignore all the new stuff that's come on the market since then. You could also look into a used PA series from Korg, but I'm not really up to speed on the Korg Arrangers. There's only two brands really doing modern Arranger keyboards, and that's Korg and Yamaha. There are a few other outliers. We'll mention those later in the video. I want to talk about now, perhaps, if you don't want to buy a used instrument, and I understand that, it's nice to buy something new. The best deals are to be had if you buy used, but if you want to buy new, what are your options? Okay, we mentioned it before, and I've done plenty of demos and reviews of this on the channel. The flagship PSR instrument that is descended from the GENOS2 is the PSR SX900, which is probably due for a replacement pretty soon, I would think. But that is an amazing keyboard. You get the sounds of the GENOS2, but in a more compact form factor, actually. The PSRs have 61 keys instead of 76, and the great thing about them is they have built-in loudspeakers, so you don't need these kind of clunky things sitting on top. It's all built in, making for a very compact, easy to transport, convenient, all-in-one package. Yeah, I love the flagship PSRs. There are some drawbacks, of course. They don't have the same number of styles, the keyboard isn't the same high quality as this, and the touchscreen is quite a lot smaller actually, but still perfectly usable, I suppose. But if you want to try out one of the latest Arranger keyboards at a much more affordable price, the PSR SX900 is about $2,200. The prices seem to have gone up quite a lot. I remember when those were under 2,000 bucks. Then there are more affordable models as well. The SX 700, I think, comes in at about $1,600, slightly less styles, slightly stripped down features, but still basically the same kind of thing. I've heard from reputable sources that the best bang for the buck in the Yamaha Arranger lineup is the SX600, coming in at around $1,000. Now, you do lose the touchscreen at this price, but again, it's the same basic features. You get the same styles, variations, and the ability to tweak everything. And I'm sure you could make some great music on one of those. And wow, yeah, that does represent really good value for money. That might be the sweet spot in the PSR range, actually. Yeah, remember that, the SX600. I'd love to get one in to demo, actually. Perhaps we can do that in the future. Okay, let's talk about the other brands. Korg have a flagship Arranger keyboard that they released maybe 2 years ago, I think. That is called the PA5X. And wow, what a beast that is. That is truly a worthy contender to the GENOS2. It's going to be a bit cheaper. I think you can get one of those for about $4,700, so about $1,000 cheaper than the G2. It does have some advantages as well. You get a flippy screen that you can tilt up that Arranger aficionados love. It's also a touchscreen, a little bit smaller than this as well. You do get a more premium enclosure. The whole case is made of really high quality metal with wooden end cheeks for a nice luxurious feel. Yeah, we like that kind of thing. Well, I do anyway. I've never played one, but I have to be honest, after listening to some demos on YouTube, I don't think the quality of the styles and the sounds are quite on par with the GENOS2, but I'd have to try one out for myself. It's hard to gauge just by listening to YouTube videos. But anyway, that's certainly, if you're on the market for one of these in that kind of price class, do not overlook the PA5X. It's also a more synth-oriented keyboard, I think. You do actually even have the option there to do some pretty deep sound editing on the voices. Then there are other PA instruments as well. I don't know the full lineup these days, but that's something you'll have to research for yourself. Going all the way down to a very affordable Korg Workstation Arranger keyboard that we have over here. Check this out. I've done demos of this on my channel. Hopefully some of you have seen them. This is the Korg i3. An Arranger keyboard. It's got styles and lots of sounds, just like this one. This costs between $500 and $600. $600, $6,000, 10 times more. I just edited out a cough. Okay, yeah, 10 times the price, basically, for one of these. Is this 10 times as good? I'm not sure. Feature-wise, yes, it's 10 times better in terms of features than this, but the end result is the music you produce on this 10 times better than the music you can produce on this. Okay, I'll leave that question hanging and talk about this for a little bit because it's really interesting. I think all of us, myself included, fall into the trap of thinking that if we just spend more on our instruments, then we'll be better musicians and make better music. Now, I think deep down we all know that that's not true. But it's comforting to think that just by putting down money, you can have a quick win and improve your skills as a musician. But this is sadly not true. For example, a really good musician on one of these is going to sound far better than a bad musician on one of those. Yes, it's nice to have all of the latest features, the latest styles and sounds, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you are as a musician and your own talents. It may be in some cases better to buy a cheaper instrument and invest a bit of money on lessons or doing some courses or something, for example. Yeah, we're all looking for a quick fix, aren't we, to be better players or do better performances, but often the only way to really do that is to just put in a lot of hard work, study and practice. So yeah, that kind of puts it into perspective perhaps. Maybe we don't need the latest version of a flagship arranger. Perhaps we're better off just sticking with what we have or buying a slightly inferior instrument and just putting in some hard work instead. I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's my opinion anyway. If you like, that could be a fun topic for a video. What is the difference between a $500 arranger over there and this $5,000 arranger? What do you get for the extra $4.5 grand? Gosh, this has been such a vulgar video with all of this money talk. I do apologize. There are some other brands to consider. Roland used to make arrangers, but I don't think they really do anymore. Maybe they have something, I'm not sure. I don't know much about it anyway. Ketron is another brand as well that you sometimes see, but again, I don't know anything about that, and I'm not even sure if they're available in the US. Then you have all of the home organ brands as well, Worsey, Lowry, all these kind of things, but I'm guessing that's a European thing. And those things are crazy expensive. Also check out Casio. I think they have some arranger style keyboards as well. Okay, I don't have much more to say. I'm curious to see when I edit the video what I was rambling on about, because this was unscripted and just sort of talking off the top of my head really, but hopefully some of my advice and recommendations were helpful to some of you. If that's the case, then please do consider subscribing, and thank you so much if you already have. I'll see you again soon. Cheerio.